I just read in the news this morning that the Blood Tribe, which is in my area of Treaty 7, I come from the Pagani Blackfoot Nation, as well as Numgis or Kwakwaka'wakw First Nations. I am horrified, I am shocked, I am deeply saddened and mostly troubled by the overdose of 22 people in one community in 48 hours. I can't imagine the shock, the trauma, the fear that is going on in people's minds and their hearts right now. And this is happening everywhere. It is not just a big city issue. It's not a southern issue. This is killing people everywhere. I live in the city and we have been dealing with overdoses, fentanyl poisonings for the last 2 years now. And I think a lot of people have gotten very comfortable, just like they did with HIV, because it's not in front of them. They don't have a Hastings Street. They don't have a 98 Ave. They don't have a Skid Row. In my community of Brockett or Pagani, the joke is, Sesame Street is where all the action happens. I'm going to assume that in my community of Pagani, that Sesame Street is where we're going to start seeing the next overdoses. And I'm not saying if, it's a matter of when. I've not seen this amount of death in over 25 years, 20 years. And it is shocking. It is absolutely shocking because there's no reason that we should be losing or potentially losing 22 people in an hour, in 2 days. Like, I am so overwhelmed by this right now. And it has to be a response from community. Living with HIV was not something that I planned on, but I really had to make a choice about how I was going to respond to it. Now, I could have laid there, died, and, said, who cares? But the fact of the matter is that there were a lot of young people traveling to the cities from reservations in the 80s, and were getting HIV. I know of at least 3 or 4 people from my Pagani Nation that are HIV positive. And for some reason, there's still a lack of response. And some of it has to do with stigma. Some of it has to do with shame. Some of it has to do with this intergenerational healing that needs to be done. It has to be done by grandparents. It has to be done by parents. It has to be done by my generation, because we are going to lose our children very quickly. We are going to lose our loved ones. We are going to lose our uncles, our aunties, anybody who is caught up, even experimenting for the first time. People are in pain, and people who are in pain look for relief. It doesn't matter if you have a broken arm or a broken brain. If you are broken, the thing that you need is relief. And unfortunately, people use substances for relief. People use coffee in the morning, which is a stimulant, okay? If you had a concentration of caffeine that was just straight caffeine, it would kill you. That's why we don't allow a certain amount of caffeine in our foods. We're not allowed to have it because it's not safe for us. Ask anybody with anxiety how they do with coffee. not good. Prescription pills, big pharma, we're a drug using society. People say, well, my drugs are prescribed by my doctor. But, we know people who doc shop, go around and either buy pills from different doctors or are addicted and have to do it on the down low. And that is probably 98% of these people who are overdosing are people in pain, people who need help. They've probably been stigmatized in the healthcare system, possibly stigmatized in their own families because they are druggies or alcoholics. Well, let me just remind you that not more than 40 years ago, I used to watch people in my community. Now, I can't say communities, but I know for a fact that this has happened in my Treaty 7 nation, where alcohol is one of the biggest issues and problems that a lot of people fall into or have fallen into. And people come to accept, the neighborhood drunk. People just kind of overlook them, but they're somebody's person, they're somebody, and you can't stigmatize people because they're in pain. You can't tell people, no, you can't fix your pain. That's like kicking somebody when they're down. Find out why they're in pain. Find out maybe why they're not talking to you about this. Maybe you're part of the problem. Maybe you're part of the reason that they're in this pain. And it's not going to get better. This I know. After you watch the amount of people die of AIDS, a preventable disease, like I have over the last 30 years, you come to realize that people won't change unless they are actually really physically in danger. And I don't know how to give people those wake-up calls except by using my voice to tell you what's up, why, my opinions, and they're just opinions, but they are also lived experience. And I don't want to see more young people buried in my community. I've already lost young people in my mom's community on the West Coast here. We are already burying people from this fentanyl, from these drug overdoses. And this is intergenerational, people. These drug habits did not start by accident or happenstance. These young people have watched many family members on the road of addiction. They live with addiction. They have had drug dealers in their family. Cocaine has had a horrible grip on my community for over 40 years on the West Coast, and has caused suicides, crime. I just can't tell you the damage that cocaine has created and has done in my community. Now, swap that out for, let's say, fentanyl overdoses. And yeah, you are going to have a lot of people that die, especially if they have to go to the city to hide what they do. That is what worries me the most in all of this, are the people who have to leave their communities to drink, party, have sex, do drugs, smoke, hide whatever it is they are doing. And I know people that have done this, okay? They have moved to the community and then they get a job as a professional. Well, they have to completely change what they do, their ethics, their behavior, everything. So instead of changing their need to numb pain with alcohol, they'll drive to a different town or city so that they can go and drink. I've lived with family members who have done this, where I've been left in a hotel room so that my uncle could go and drink. And I wasn't safe, but this is the story I hear over and over and over again, where people are left leaving their children so that they can go and party. Well, if we made it less stigmatizing and less taboo for people to just go out and do what they need to do and support them in that, people wouldn't have to hide so much. So there's so much stigma that needs to be undone. There's a lot of learning that needs to be done. But more importantly, there needs to be a response. And I'd like to know what people are doing about this. This is a health crisis. If 22 people died in Victoria, Vancouver, Calgary, in 48 hours, it would be a huge health crisis. And I'd like to see what the federal government, but not only the federal government, but what our Treaty 7 nation is going to do to respond to this. You have been called to action by HIV already and have failed. I don't know what is going on in our communities anymore as far as HIV and AIDS education. Are people talking about consent to youth? Are they talking about using condoms? Are they talking about sexuality, domestic violence, date rape, any of that stuff? Because that all eventually leads to that road of pain. If you are not healed from those traumatic events, you have become a person in pain. And people who are in pain want relief. Whether that's healing, if they can't find the healing, then they're going to go somewhere else that makes them feel better. And it's usually a quick fix. So substances are often where people head. However, if you can somehow find culture and family to lift you up and help you out of that painful position, then utilize that, because not a lot of people have family. Not a lot of people have people there that won't judge them for their pain. And that is really all I have to say about that. I'm just absolutely in shock right now. And I am so sorry for all the people who have lost a loved one to this. It's just wrong. Try and stay alive. Keep each other alive, please.